We have had with us members of Congress, part of the delegation who are here, Senator Romney, who you'll be hearing from in a moment, Congressman Moore, who is also here with us, and you'll get to hear from him, Congressman Curtis, who was here last night, and I will say that the other members of the delegation will actually be joining the Secretary on the next leg of her trip as she goes to one of the other monuments, the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, and so they will be there, Senator Lee and our other members of Congress, Congressman Stewart and Congressman Owens. So we're excited that everyone was together to be able to have this opportunity. I also want to thank the tribal elders who were with us today and who shared their perspective on these sacred lands. We were so excited to spend some time with our friends from the Hopi Nation, the Zuni Nation, the Navajo Nation, and others who have been with us on this trip. And we want to thank you for not just for this occasion, but we've had many opportunities to meet and to dialogue and to talk through these very unfortunately divisive issues. And more than anything, I think the takeaway from our meetings over the past 24 hours, that we want to try to take the divisiveness out of this as much as we possibly can. We know that that's probably impossible, but that there are better ways to do this, that there are better ways to take these shared landscapes and preserve them for generations to come, and to honor the spirit of the people who have been here before and the people who are here now, and recognize the complexities of these issues that are economical, spiritual. There are so many different issues that are interacting here, and really trying to get at the core of what matters, what matters to the tribal leaders who are here, what matters to the citizens of Utah who live here, who are in these surrounding communities, who depend on these lands for their lives and livelihoods, and understanding what that means. A monument is just a word, and there are laws around that, right? But what is it that we really want? Our tribal leaders talk about still wanting, of course, to use these lands for spiritual ceremonies, but for practical purposes, like the wood that they need for their families, the hunting, the grazing, those types of things that are there, recreation opportunities for everyone. And then what happens, and this is the dichotomy, right? Because these places are so spiritual, and we heard these stories today about how we want to protect these lands, but the minute we made them a monument, people started coming. And the more people that come, the more degradation that happens to the lands. And how do we celebrate these areas and not love them to death and not overwhelm them? How do we protect the things that need protection, but still be able to provide jobs for those that live in this area? And where are those intersections? We think that there's an opportunity. We pray there's an opportunity for collaborative action that would be. And I'll say this too. This ping-ponging. We use that term back and forth from a Democrat administration, then a Republican administration. The litigation that happens. We had lawsuits coming from the right, and then there was an action by a new president. And then we have lawsuits coming from the left, and ping-ponging is probably the wrong word, because ping-pong is fun. There's nothing fun about what we've been arguing about over the past decade here, and can we find those solutions? I believe so. In my heart, I think there is an opportunity for that, to provide the resources that are needed here. All of those things can only be done through legislation. They can't be done through an executive order. But that's hard. That's hard work. It's hard. If it was easy, we would have done it already. What's easy is with the stroke of a pen, making it bigger or making it smaller. That's easy. And so we have an opportunity now to choose the easy way, which will ultimately be more divisive, and this will continue on, or to try the hard way. And we're hoping that we can do something monumental. That's a terrible cliche to use when we're talking about monuments, but something big, something awesome, something amazing. Where maybe we don't all get what we want, but we get most of what we want, and more importantly, we have better relationships and in this shared space, in these shared landscapes. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank Secretary Haaland. This is the first opportunity in our new administration to welcome a secretary to our state, a member of the cabinet, and she is everything you hope she would be. She's delightful, she's brilliant, she's engaging. She understands this in unique ways that, of course, because of her background, that many of us will never understand. And so we've been so fortunate to have her here and have her so engaged. And we look forward to working with her, not just on this issue, but on many issues for years to come. And with that, I think we're both open to answer some questions before we have other people that speak.
I'd like to get the Secretary's point of view on what you just said. What is the appetite from this administration to put together something that can be permanent instead of this partisan back and forth every 4 to 8 years?
Well, thank you for that question. And of course, that's the reason we're here. It's the reason I'm here, is because I feel like we had a meeting last night and we talked openly about what we all want. And we all want pretty much the same thing, right? We want to protect land. We want to make sure that it's there for generations to come. The governor reiterated that just a few minutes ago. It's my job to put together a report for the president of everyone we met with, everything we heard, what the competing interests are, and ultimately it will be the president's decision.
But Madam Secretary, do you plan to just increase the boundaries of the monument?
As I said, it'll be up to the president on what he wants to do. My job, as I mentioned in my remarks, is to be here to listen, to learn, to report back to the president of every single voice that I have heard on this trip, to make sure that he has all the information that he needs to make a decision.
Madam Secretary, in your discussions, have you been able to zero in yet on what a compromise would look like? And can you share any details?
You know, we haven't zeroed in on that. We talked a little bit last night. I know that my former colleague, Congressman Curtis, has talked about legislation. I don't know exactly what that looks like. So I think that we'll continue to be in touch. We'll continue to talk. We'll continue to see how we can work things out. And of course, the president will make a decision. But look, legislation can always move forward, right? Regardless of what President Biden does, legislation can always move forward. And my job, of course, is to just make sure the president has the information.
Madam Secretary. Thank you. We all know that most cultural sites to tribes are not within the bounds of their tribal lands, and Bears Ears is simply one of the poster children for that. Kind of a bigger question, how can we move forward and make sure that these places are protected, particularly when they're on public lands?
We just I just talked about this. Look, President Obama worked hard to make sure the tribes were a part of the decision. It's called collaborative management, making sure that we are looking to tribes. Indigenous knowledge is extremely important all over the country, certainly here, because there are so many cultural sites. I feel it's extremely important to rely on Indian tribes, tribal leaders, to make sure that we are caring for the land in the right way. Their voice, their work, their perspective will be extremely important. And certainly we've talked a lot about that with the tribes as I've been here.
We take 2 more. In regards to Grand Staircase Escalante, I know you're only spending like a day or an hour there tomorrow, and the local Paiute tribes nor the Grand Staircase Escalante partners haven't heard from you. Why are you spending so much time at Bears Ears and not as much time in Grand Staircase Escalante and not meeting with your people?
Thank you so much. I wish I could spend 2 weeks here. I really do. It would be an amazing opportunity for me to really dig down. We had a limited time. The governor was so kind to make sure that we got over there so that we could spend some time there. Because I'm not in Utah doesn't mean that we don't continue the conversations. DOI staff, dedicated DOI staff, have been on the telephone and Zoom calls with many, many stakeholders for as long as they have been in office. So we have had many conversations with those folks and we'll continue to have those conversations.
Can you commit to following up with the Utah Paiutes and Grand Staircase Escalante partners?
Absolutely, yes. We'll follow up with everyone. Yes, thank you.
So in 2019, the visitation of the national parks is 300 million recreation visits, and it's expected to climb. What is the Department of the Interior, what can be done to kind of relieve the pressure on just parks in general, and as we open up new parks, to ensure that the stakeholders are not kind of overrun with tourists, for lack of a better word?
Thank you so much. That is absolutely a tremendous concern for me and for the National Park staff, certainly, for BLM, for the entire Interior Department. I appreciate the question. It's a concern for us. We are going to make sure that we are paying attention to that. I've been in office for a couple of weeks. I've spent time with that staff. We're going to make sure that we continue to listen and do what we can to make it feasible. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Madam Secretary and Governor, good to be with you today and to be on this hike together and to see this beautiful landscape. The Biden administration has an unusual opportunity. As the governor said, the history of this place has been a ping-ponging, with a monument being designated and then being shrunk. It can go back and forth depending upon the administration. There can be lawsuits going back and forth. The administration can do something permanent so that the ping-ponging and the lawsuits end. Secondly, there's been a lot of energy and passion around this piece of property here and also at Grand Staircase. A lot of energy and angst on the part of the people who live here, whether Native American or others that have moved here more recently. And the president has an opportunity to bring people together and to create more unity. Now, he could take a different course. He could take a purely political course, and one side will be happy and the other side will be mad. And then we go from having a permanent solution to a temporary one. And we go from uniting the American people to dividing us. I hope the president is able to take action to bring us together and to find a permanent solution. I think this is an opportunity for finding common ground, no pun intended. I really do think there's an opportunity for people who want to be able to use this land, regardless of what we're going to call it, to use it for the purposes they intend for their families and for their future. And I think if we work together, and it's going to take hard work with Native American leaders and political leaders, local and state and Washington, working together to say, how can we use this land so that everybody gets an opportunity to use it in the way they feel best? I think there's an opportunity to do that, but it's going to take work. I hope we take advantage of this opportunity, and I certainly hope the president gives the ear and the attention to this issue that I think it deserves. And I very much appreciate the secretary being here and providing the input that he will need for this decision. Thank you. Congressman?
Thank you, Senator, Secretary Haaland, and Governor Cox. I'll make 3 quick points. The first point I'd like to make is that as Secretary Haaland commented several times about how much listening she's doing, I've seen it firsthand. I know our team and other members of the delegation were very excited when she agreed to come visit, and then when we got word that she was coming, we were very excited about it. And she has taken an enormous amount of input in just a short amount of time, and will continue to do that. And I wanted to just personally thank her for and her team for organizing that and making that possible. That is the best sign of this going forward. Second, my role on this, we're in Representative Curtis District tomorrow. There will be in Representative Stewart's District. My role, being on the Natural Resources Committee, while I didn't get a chance to serve with Secretary Haaland on that committee, this is a great opportunity to get that chance. And our team is 100% committed for a legislative solution to this. The last point that I'll make is, without a legislative solution, we will continue to have many of these negative side effects or externalities that we've discussed and that have been highlighted, and I won't regurgitate those. But let's use this as an opportunity to come together, and we're committed as a delegation to make that happen. And thank you for all being here, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Any questions for the senator? Yes. I have a question. Probably better for Rodney. All right, Thank you. No problem. Just a couple questions, Senator. Thank you
Question?
so much. Hi, Senator Romney.
Hi there.
I've heard from the Intertribal Coalition that they have been in talks with the Utah congressional delegation.
You said that again?
Oh, sorry, I'll pick this up. The Intertribal Coalition says they've been in talks with you guys, and they, it doesn't seem like you're on the same page about, or at least you haven't given them a number for the size of the monument that you're willing to agree on. Are you guys on the same page? Do you have a number in mind? If so, what is it?
Congressman Curtis has met with each of the 5 tribes on the tribal council and has spoken with them about working together to decide what they would like to have done on different portions of the land. And once you determine that, then you can determine exactly what the boundaries are going to be. So as is indicated, the members of the tribes want to be able to use the land to be able to get firewood for their homes. And so that's going to require a specific designation. Likewise, there's going to be grazing on the part of tribal members as well as people from the community here. And so looking at each portion of the land and where the antiquities are that need to be protected, those things would have to be considered. And ultimately, I think we want to look to the tribal leaders to help us make that decision, as opposed to come to them and say, here's what we're going to give you. What do you think? Instead, we're saying, no, let's work together, see what you want to do, which parts of land, which parts need protection and preservation. Can we perhaps have a cultural center? Might we also be able to have employment opportunities on certain parts of the land? So this is something we would like to work out together, as opposed to us coming to them and saying, this is how many acres we want. We'd rather say, let's work together and do the hard work to see if we can't find some common ground, if you will, some understanding of what can be done where, and then what the designation is would follow.
Senator,
Well,
your clear message today is calling on the president to come up with a permanent solution.
Yeah, my message is that this is an opportunity for the president to come up with a permanent solution through legislation.
Right.
And likewise, to reduce the temperature and to bring us together.
But
Because the division in this community, this doesn't need to be there.
yeah, let me ask you this though. He was the vice president when this was designated. That probably gives us some insight into how he's going to approach this. So how confident are you that that can actually get to that point where you are coming together on a permanent solution?
I can't begin to predict what the president will do, but I do believe he's an individual who will make his own decisions and will not be bound by the decisions of his predecessor in the Democratic Party, President Obama. So we'll see what he wants to do in this setting, but I'm hopeful, particularly given his inaugural address, and looking for bipartisanship and bringing the country together, that he'll see this as an opportunity to do just that, to work with Republicans and Democrats in Congress, to see if we can't work with tribal leaders and to say, how do we do something here that will last and not just exist as long as he's president?
And with Secretary Haaland here, it's a great sign.
Have you talked to him about this recently?
No, I'm not.
well, are you willing to go larger than 1.35 million acres?
I'm sorry.
Are you willing to go larger than 1.35 million
Yeah,
acres?
I'm actually not talking about acres myself. I'm instead thinking about how we use the land, and what it's called is of less significance to me than how the land is going to be used by people locally and by people from across the country.
Thank you, gentlemen. Reminder that when we're done, these guys will stick around, so it's not that you can't have.
If the White House does not choose
I want to make sure the tribal leaders have a chance to speak.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Madam Secretary Haaland, and the distinguished guests that were here today, Governor Cox and others that were from the delegation of the state of Utah. My name is Clark Tanakongwa. I currently sit as the vice chairman for the Hopi tribe. Lives right south of here in the state of Arizona, and also is the co-chair of the Bears Ear Coalition. It is a distinguished honor to be part of this great group of people that we had the opportunity to do some dialogue, some common understanding. Now, the word was said more than once. It would be great if we would sit down and actually talk this over and get it in legislation form. Well, I asked the Utah delegation if they're really sincere about legislation. I hope Senator Romney does put that legislation through. because it can't come from any other state except from the state of Utah. They're the ones that are opposing as far as anything, if there should be an expansion of reinstatement of 1.3 or 1.9 or more and beyond that. All the tribes that are involved in this, first time in American history, there's 5 tribes. You've got Hopi, Zuni, Navajo, Ute, Southern Ute, that have combined together to put something like this together in the history of Native America and America itself. It must be understood that who were the first inhabitants of this nation and this country here where we currently stand. It is us. We still have cultural ties to this. We still have our ceremonial ties to this area. It's much like the church, the Mormon temple up in Salt Lake City. If you desecrate, destroy our shrines, our temples down here, basically you're destroying our culture, our religion, our lifeline, and our history of how we became part of this nation, what we call a nation. And I heard recently, which was really very disappointing, by one individual saying that the government was doing an overreach of control of people. Well, let me tell you, folks, I think the government has done that all along. Look down here, south of here, White Mesa, a 4x4 area. You think you being confined and being overreached? Wait until you become a brown-skinned person and a Native American, and that's when you will talk about overreach of of American government. That's the way I certainly feel about this. We were here first. I believe if they really want us to talk, as far as one-to-one, as far as doing some compromise on this issue, it took the grassroots efforts of people like the Mayor Boys and others that started this whole process approximately 8 years ago. The Obama administration gave us that ear. So something did happen. And next thing, the proclamation was short-lived, very short-lived. Yes, the Trump administration came in, disappointed us. But one thing I like to leave and say is that, I am still part of that litigation. I'm one of those individuals that filed suit against Trump for what he did, in my opinion, was very wrong. It took years of hard work for us to get to this point. We can talk, but until I see that legislation from the Utah delegation, maybe that will make me a believer of what they talk about freedom in America. It's never been fair. Why is it they're just saying that this is a good opportunity for the Biden administration at this point to start showing about compromise and living together in harmony? Why is it having to be a Native American issue? Why? There's other issues that they could have done the same thing with. You talk about the segregation down in the South in the 50s and 60s. What did they get out of it? What did the Asian Americans get out of it? What did Spanish Americans get out of it? It's always us, Native Americans, at the end of the bus, having to declare our rights when yet we were the first inhabitants. Many of us and our relatives went off to war before we were even citizens of this nation. But yet, how many of you have realized that? That is my question to America today. We saved this nation. I'm proud to say I come from the Hopi Nation. We had 10 code talkers that used our language, Hopi language, to help save this country during World War II. That code was never broken. Same thing as what the Navajo did and other tribes. There was 33 tribes that were utilized during that time in World War II. That language, some of it came from here, right from this region, Bears Ears. So, what I say to you all is that let's wake up, America. If you're talking about unification, if you're talking about respect, if you're talking about humility, it has to start with everyone. It can't always be the Native Americans saying, please help us. We've done our part. We've done our work. Now it's up to the Utah delegation to realize we are also people. We get to vote. We get to vote the senators, the congressmen, and so forth into office, and even the president. But unfortunately, that's not fair in America. Voting rights are being diminished as I speak. So all these things start from here, from our cultural history. That's why it is very important to us that we save Bears Ears. With that, I say thank you, Kwakwai. Everybody have a good day.
My name is Carlton Bachman, the Lieutenant Governor for the Pueblo of Zuni. Zuni tribe is located in New Mexico, but we hail from all the way from the Grand Canyon, making our way up to modern day Zuni, not because of certain issues, it was really because that was our destiny. It was also our destiny to learn along certain ways. And we'll appreciate the opportunity and with Secretary Haaland, Senator Romney, and all the congressional folks on being able to share a little bit of the knowledge that's been passed to me. When I first came up here, I was introduced to this landscape by my elders. They taught me certain things about how to approach the Zuni way of life. As a veteran, I spent a long time away from my homeland, from Zuni, but I always knew that I had to go back, intended to go back. And the time when it was time for me to go home, I went back home, and I shared this with you yesterday. I came back with PTSD issues, wanting to separate the veteran from my personal life. And in that pain, I also turned away all the good things, the camaraderie, my battle buddies, the people that I should turn to that always looked out for me. And in my own way, I looked out for them. And when I tried to separate those issues from myself, it wasn't working out. But it was like places like Bears Ears, and for whatever reason, these elders found it in me to be able to receive some of the information. They took a chance on me. Here, learn some of this. And in the learning, understand that you have an obligation to pass that knowledge on. Traditional knowledge is to protect, preserve, and carry on. And if we have children that don't understand our language, there's no one else to carry it on. And why is that so important to us? Because there are things that exist here that we have names for in Zuni that don't coincide with the English names. There are things that are referred to in our stories and our prayers and ancient tales that tell us of our ways of life and how to survive that exist here, that we learn from here. As part of my society, I'm told that I have to learn a set of songs, and we can sing for maybe even 8 hours. And if we're lucky, meaning that we are dedicated, we won't repeat any of our songs. Each of those would be unique, and only one of those songs is actually in the Zuni language that you can actually hear and understand. The rest of those songs, they're in languages that have long gone, died. Some of those languages still exist in the pueblos that we call sisters. On the state of New Mexico, we have the All Pueblo Council of Governors, and here on the Arizona side, we have the Hopi tribe. We have these shared values that speak to us about this landscape. And in this understanding, I was able to find a way through that pain and find the love of my people. And it's that love that spoke to the warrior spirit in me that told me I have to continue, again, protect, preserve, and continue traditional knowledge. And so in that wanting, I've become more and more accustomed to my language, to my way of life, and understand that even though I'm a Zuni tribal member, I'm elected, and I hold this position, that does not entitle me to all Zuni knowledge. Just as any child has to run and grow and learn all these steps, I have to learn certain milestones before I'm allowed to learn additional information. And all these Zuni ways of life, from the rain priest way of life, the Kachina way of life, the medicine way of life, and all those little esoteric things that exist with certain families and clans, that's all Zuni. It's not just one component that makes it Zuni, it's all of it. And when we come here to Bears Ears and other locations that we say are sacred, we don't make a big show of it. We approach these places humbly. And you may not even know of us because we want to be good neighbors. We don't want to anger our neighbors to prevent us from coming back from places that we have sorely needed. When we did our migration and we passed through here, we left families here. We left children here. And it was the initial intrusion of Spanish diseases that swept up like a fire all the way up to here, forcing our people into pockets. And for those of us that were lucky to be in those places like Zuni and all these locations that were still remain strong, we survived. And eventually coalesced in Zuni. Why is Zuni different from other pueblos? It's our tongue. It's different from Hopi. But again, those shared values, all those things are long life, a good path, rain, seeds, wealth, peopling, children, and all those things, spiritual strength that make us who we are. Those are things that we wish and pray for, not just for ourselves, but for you as well. We spoke of pain, and for those of you that lost people, family, and experienced COVID, you got through the pain. There's some people and some families that didn't get through that. So for those of you that have survived COVID, or for those that have those families that passed on, I wish you my prayer and my blessings to give you a little bit of peace of mind. Because despite all the rich history that lives here, I can't always save all my people. Secretary Haaland and a lot of folks have spoken about murder, missing Indigenous women. I lost a sister-in-law, 24 years old, but she couldn't find a way past her pain. She lost both her parents. She survived COVID, but somewhere along the way, we couldn't find enough light for her to continue. And so with these words that I speak to you, to try to convey the importance of this place and what it means to me as a warrior, as a healed warrior, and why I continue this fight in my own way for my people. I may not always approach it the way my elders wanted to. I may not always approach it the way my youth want me to, but I approach it in the manner that my parents want me to, that my grandparents expect me to, humbly and respectfully. So that is who I am. That is a little bit of who in this place in time represents Zuni, because whoever comes next will continue this fight for me, for us. I don't know who that will be, but they will take on that pain, they will take on that path in their own way and manner. And so these are the words that I share with you, and hopefully those words will reach them one day, and they will take up the mantle that I sorely need them to. So Elako, thank you for this time to speak, and I really do appreciate the time I was able to speak directly to the Senator Romney and the Congressman, and let them know exactly these same words that I've shared with them. That is the beginning of collaborative management. That is the beginning of them understanding what it is they're standing on. What it means to me to know that there's a chance for someone else to be able to approach the same place that I made my offering and be able to do the same thing, so that way it continues that protection, preservation, carrying on.